Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Chewing the Fat this week. We're really thumping them out. It's been a while, so probably long overdue. Today I'm catching up with the CEO of Simplr Health, Mr. Dean Kilby. Welcome, Dean.
Hello.
Hello.
It's been forever.
Yeah, things like that. And we're going to catch up on some things you've been up to as well. You've been jet setting around the world, doing a lot of really great stuff, catching up with some world leaders in their field in all various different aspects of health and neurosurgery and longevity and regenerative medicine and things like that. What can you update us on that type of thing? How'd that all go?
Well,
Next.
well.
Oh, there was some HBOT stuff you went to too, right? Some hyperbaric
Yeah,
oxygen.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hyperbaric oxygen is something that's made a big difference to me over the past couple of years. So some might recall I experienced a head injury, and I did that because I went back into a dojo after 30 years of not doing martial arts, thinking that I'd be okay. And there's some deconditioning to the front muscles of my neck, obviously, because these days we're all hanging our head down over a phone. And anyway, I mistimed a break. I got thrown down and my head just flopped back and hit the mat really hard. So I experienced a concussion, whiplash, and then I thought I'd be okay in a couple of weeks, and then it progressively got worse and worse. So it's what we call post-concussion syndrome. Generally, what I think happened is when we're young and we experience a head trauma, it looks and feels like you kind of recover from that head trauma. But the brain is so plastic because you're young, inflammation's so low, and you're so mobile. You exercise a lot when you're younger. And all this works to increase neurogenesis, but mostly neuroplasticity in the brain. So instead of it healing, you create compensatory pathways that kind of like make up for whatever was lost in the trauma. Copperhead trauma later on in life, you might do some damage to those compensatory pathways, and now your brain doesn't know what to do and it just shut down.
Right.
So one of the modalities that I utilized, and I stacked a number of modalities to kind of hack my healing process, was hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And, didn't quite know how to utilize that technology appropriately. It was kind of just a suck it and see, and learned a fair bit throughout my own experience. And then in the United States, I got the opportunity to attend a hyperbaric oxygen and functional medicine conference. So I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And the takeaway messages for me were the importance of frequency, and consistency. So, every day or every second day for, weeks makes the difference, not just one session a week or something like that. And I was doing that for a period of time, but we didn't know. There are no real experts in hyperbaric oxygen medicine here in Australia.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't until I started ramping it up and I was in the HBOT every second day, as you know, because I'd call you every time I'm done with a session and you'll be like, have you been in the HBOT again?
Brain going a million miles an hour, coming out with all these ideas, and I've just worked this out and I've just worked that out. Like, he's been in the HBOT again.
Exactly. So that was really great. And it was great to be in the US, and the keynote lecturer at that conference was Professor Joseph Maroon, who's one of our mentors, Simplr Health, and he's a dear friend of mine. It was great to catch up with him and have a glass of wine with him. I haven't posted that picture yet, but I will. That was something special, given that Joe wrote the book called The Longevity Factor, how resveratrol and red wine activate genes for a long and healthy life. And then he assisted me in bringing the Wine Doctor wine, the resveratrol enhanced wine, into the US market.
Yeah.
And it was via his cousin's winery in Napa, which I visited, back in 2017. And we moved a container over there to California for distribution. But unfortunately, Paul, he was, he was older, and he was diagnosed with advanced renal cancer, and he died shortly after. So I lost that distribution partner and dear friend over in California as well. So it was good to catch up with Joe. That was awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Seems to go along with the theme of everything we've spoken about this week. Emma and I spoke a bit before about the holiday that you and I were on recently in Canada, and then Em's just got back from a trip away in Europe. And then I spoke with a client of ours, Emily, who's setting off to Fiji today. I think she's leaving in Fiji today. And you've been gallivanting around on this educational and, trying to fulfill on a massive impact to health in the world, really, in case of regenerative medicine and cancer research and things like that. How did you come to manage the health side of things? Because you were flat biscuit. Like, every time I spoke to you, Emma and I'd get on the phone and just go, well, seems like we're really busy. And then you sort of tend to talk to Dean and just go, I've got nothing. I need to step up. This is packing more into a day than I've put into a week.
Yeah.
How do you manage all that side of it?
Well, really well. It makes a big difference when you're living into a big future. So the context is always decisive. And I think was it on the interview with Emily from a client that was mentioned, context is decisive, and it really is. And context is something that people have very little facility with. It really takes some looking and an ability to detach from whatever you're given by in a moment. So, you get stuck in a particular kind of context, and a context is like, who are you being, your attitude, and your actions are perfectly correlated with some view. So your actions kind of point to your actions. When I say actions, I even mean your experience of life in any given moment. It points to the way in which a situation occurs for you. And if your occurring world is one that's not so empowering, if it's one that doesn't give you a sense of aliveness and being up to something great, that's going to show up in not just your experience of life, but it's going to be a limitation on your performance. And performance is just action and inaction, right? So if you look at the context of holidays for people, traveling, it's to escape. It's to get away from whatever you've been weighed down by, right? And it doesn't always necessarily occur for you as an opportunity to grow. I mean, look at the 2 weeks that when we traveled in Canada. I mean, that was full on. We experienced so much. We traveled so much. People, even in Canada, were like, mind blown by how much we were accomplishing in such a short space of time, and seeing and experiencing, and we were present every single day. And every day was worth it. Like, there wasn't a day looking back on that trip where I could say to myself, wow, that was a waste of a day, or I regret not doing something on that day, or regret doing that. I wish I'd done something. There wasn't any conversation like that, and so the trip that I just went on, so just to give listeners an understanding. So I flew from Sydney to Los Angeles. I was there for 2 days. I met with some scientific leaders, a neurobiologist, Dr. Kristen Willemere, who wrote the book Biohack Your Brain. She's a scientific advisor to Simplr Health. I also met with Dr. Antonio Civitarese. He's a metabolic disease expert. And for anyone that has heard of, maybe even utilized these anti-obesity medications. They started off as anti-diabetic medications, and they're being used to lose weight. These are injectable drugs. They were pretty much developed around his time when he was a leader in obesity medicine. He was working for a company called Amylin. They developed, I think it was the first agonist of the incretin system. So these are a molecular biochemical system that regulates hunger. And then he was scientific director of obesity for Novo Nordisk globally. And that was the time that semaglutide was developed. But anyway, it was great to catch up with him. He's now head of R&D for another big pharmaceutical company that's developing medications for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and other liver disorders. So it was good to get some inside information from him and kind of reaffirm some of my understanding of the science of metabolic health, of weight loss, of weight gain, and inability to lose weight. And, you know, we're learning more and more all the time, and it's near impossible to keep up with the literature as it's getting published. So it's great just to turn to someone like this, who it's his job to stay on top of everything at the highest level and just kind of get caught up, so to speak, on what I need to know. And then I also managed to catch up with Dr. Michael Lau, who's a leader in cell biology and commercial GMP labs and also in vitro diagnostics. So it was really awesome. And it took something to coordinate all of those meetings, because these aren't people you can just like easily catch up with. And I had to catch up with all three of them in the space of a day and a half. And they were traveling and I had to coordinate it. So that was really cool. And then I flew from Los Angeles to Florida, where I was there for 5 days, attending this Hyperbaric Oxygen and Functional Medicine conference, and got to socialize with the leaders of this conference and meet some of the key presenters, and also spend time with Joe Maroon, who was presenting. And whilst I was there in Florida, because I never stop, even when there's downtime. And so I got there on the Tuesday evening. I wake up on the Wednesday morning, ready for the conference. And then I realized the conference doesn't start until the afternoon, right? So I had all this morning. I'm like, what do I do with myself? And so I did some work in my room, in the hotel room, and then I made my way downstairs at 11, and I thought I'd wander around the hotel and get familiar with the environment first. Then I realized it doesn't start at 1. The conference starts at 4 p.m. So I've got all this time to kill. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Should I put some shorts on, go spend some time in the pool? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to sit at the bar and talk to people. And it was interesting. The guy behind the bar, he just happens to be type 2 diabetic. So we start having this amazing conversation, and I'm coaching him, and he's blown away. So he's getting all this free coaching. So I'm getting all these free cocktails. And anyway, and then his colleague, she gets interested in the conversation. She's listening in. She keeps standing by, listening in, and then she starts asking questions as well. Anyway, she asks for my card. I give him my card. She disappears for a while. I'm still at the bar talking to him. She comes back after a while and she goes, I've checked you out online. You're amazing. Can I tell you about what I do? So she's actually an integrative nutritionist. Right. And she's working, in hospitality as well, trying to make ends meet as a single mother. And she's amazing. She's so switched on and just really receptive. And so I think there's a future Simplr Health coach for us to develop over there. And, someone that's really hungry for it and really wants to learn and be cause in the matter of elevating what she currently knows and how best can she utilize that. And, this is the kind of person I love, someone who's got a bit of initiative and generates some energy towards it. And, there's so many people that have spoken to me and even you over the past few years who have like, oh, could I be a Simplr Health coach? It's like, well, I don't know. Can you? Would you? I mean, it's totally possible for anyone, but are you willing to do what it takes? And it's not easy, you know. So then whilst I was there in Florida, I meet, the leaders in Hyperbaric Oxygen originate from Israel. And it's this amazing company. And the CEO of that organization was at the conference. So Joe Maroon introduces me to him. And he's awesome. Just phenomenal stuff that they're doing, like in assisting people to actually heal, like post-stroke recovery, post-neurosurgery, PTSD, depression, just maintaining cognitive prowess as people age, staving off dementia. I mean, all this neuro stuff, which is just awesome. They have a center in Florida. So I hire a car and I drive there. And it was 4 hours away. I hired a car. This is what it looks like to be unreasonable. Like, I'd only just flown from Sydney to LA and then LA to Florida, attending this conference. I miss a day of the conference so I can drive to this clinic and just check it out and meet with the chief operating officer just for 1 hour. And then drove all the way back to attend the evening sessions of the conference. Right. And still be present and still be like, you know, the life of the party, so to speak. And so that was incredible. I also then spent a bit of time catching up with a stem cell colleague of mine, whom I first brought to Australia back in 2014. And we ran the first ever stem cell clinician training workshop in Australia. And it was so great to see her. And she's got this phenomenal facility now, all around biohacking. So it was amazing to see some of the technology she's got in her facility and have a play around with some of those toys. So I learned a lot. And then from Florida, I had to get to Japan. So flew from Florida to Washington, changed planes from Washington to Tokyo, changed planes from Tokyo to Osaka. So this is the bit where you're going to laugh. I'm in Tokyo and I was told that my baggage would go all the way to Osaka, and it wasn't the case. I had to, because I'm entering the country, right, in Tokyo. So I had to get my baggage, which meant I had to go through all of the customs process and then wait for my luggage. And I missed my connecting flight to Osaka. So, okay, this is the one time I was actually exhausted. When I go to the desk to check into the next airline to get that plane from Tokyo to Osaka, and she was telling me like, no, it's not going to work. You're not going to make it. And I just leaned forward on the desk and I said, I'm so tired. You just helped me out. Anyway, she just managed everything. She was amazing. I was crying, right? I think that's why. There's power and vulnerability. You just got to be where you're at. And where I was at was really bloody tired, annoyed, upset, and, you know, just let it all out. Right? Who cares? And it's amazing what happens. And it all just got sorted, and it actually gave me space to just chill out. And which was great because I had to then get a train to another terminal or airport, wherever I was going. I don't know. Anyway, I get to Osaka, and then I had to figure out, okay, how do I get from Osaka to Kyoto? Ended up catching a bus, and then I get so the bus takes me to Kyoto station. I get a cab to the hotel. I get into the hotel. Now I've got business partners from here in Sydney who are meeting me at Kyoto. They got there earlier, and they send me I just get into the hotel room, and I get a text message from my business partner saying, "We're at the restaurant. We want to order. Hurry up." And I just wrote back, "Fuck you." Anyway, I said, chill out, order, I'll be there shortly. So I go downstairs, get a cab. I get in the cab, and they send me the link of the restaurant, and it's all in Japanese. I just showed the taxi driver, you know, the restaurant details. He's looking at it. He's playing around with his computer. I'm thinking it can't be any more than like 10 minutes away, right? And he's messing around with the computer. It's hilarious. He drives, he turns left, and then just stops. I go, oh, you lost. And he goes, no, the restaurant's just there. It cost me $4.50.
That's gold.
I know. That was so funny. And it really, when you're tired and man, everything's heavy, when you keep going, you keep pushing yourself and everything gets heavy. And it's those moments, if you grant yourself the opportunity to laugh at it, it just brings you have to practice bringing nothing all the time. Like, let go of the significance. It doesn't matter, allow yourself to laugh at it. And what that does neurologically, even if anytime you make a mistake in life, if you can practice laughing in that moment, what it does is it loosens the grip of those neuronal pathways that get developed in times of stress, embarrassment, some kind of trauma, right? Because what happens is the action potential threshold on those neuronal pathways that get created, where you say to yourself, I'm a loser, boom, imagine you're a little kid, you've got this very plastic brain, nothing's kind of set in stone yet, and you say something like that, you make a decision of who you are for yourself, and then that's the context for who you be in life, a loser. And then anytime you experience something that could potentially reinforce that pathway, the action potential threshold lowers, which means basically that neuronal pathway just fires more readily. And the more you walk a particular path, the more trodden that path is, the more difficult it is to create traveling on any other kind of path. So from the youngest age, if you can practice, even with kids and so forth, bringing no significance to those moments, right? And then your brain's free to learn from it. Anyway, I get into the restaurant. I wasn't expecting a whole entourage to be there. So it was good that I was able to have a laugh at myself and come in and just like be on point again, because it was business.
Yeah.
So I spent some time in Japan, in Kyoto, created a strategic partnership with Kyoto University. There was a world-leading immune cell therapy expert who's developing some amazing treatments for cancer, and even engineering T cells to mop up viruses like cytomegalovirus, which is a big ig for bone marrow transplant recipients. Right. A good proportion, I think it's maybe as high as 30%. It can be an issue there. So there's a big opportunity to make a difference. Even engineering T cells to mop up coronaviruses.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so imagine an off-the-shelf immune cellular product that, a vulnerable person gets some kind of infection, you can just treat them with this, So that's the medicine of the future, and in particular cancer treatment. So had a great time meeting with that team and went out for dinner and by the Kamo River and, traditional Japanese dining. It's amazing. I love it. I know you've been to Japan and love it. And we visited some other clinical environments as well, and laboratory environments, and learned from some of the top oncology professors. Like, some of the stuff they're doing in Japan is incredible. Imagine your body's riddled with tumors and, say your lungs, for example, and they've invented these catheters that are amazing. And the skill set in these radiation oncologists are just phenomenal. They go up through the femoral artery. They can get the catheter right into these tumors, these masses, and inject minimal effective doses of a chemotherapeutic drug that can start to shrink the tumor with minimal impact on the patient.
Yeah, wow.
In terms of side effect profiles, and they shrink it to a certain point, and then they come in secondary to chemotherapeutic drugs. Maybe they might use stereotactic bilateral, radiation as well, but they can target that. They've got all these imaging suites that allow them to visualize every little detail. It's amazing. I posted some of those images, and then they hit the tumors when they're down to a particular size with immunocell therapy, where prior to treatment, they've taken the patient's own immune cells, harvested, grown them in the laboratory, activated them. So now they're in high numbers, they're ready to kill cancer cells. And now the tumor's shrunk to a workable size for these immune cells to do their job. And it's just an amazing, amazing setup. They take the best of the best oncologists, and it still takes them 3 years to master it.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of the Japanese environment as well. I mean, these people who are up to big things, it's like they're in the game of mastery. They've never mastered it. I mean, the top professor who I got to meet and interact with, and he's still learning, he's still fascinating, he's still listening from a curiosity that might be present in a postdoctoral student or an intern. And here he is in his 70s, still listening in that way. And it's no wonder you guys are so masterful. It's because they're constantly engaged in the game of mastery, right? It's never a done deal. And then we visited a lab environment, and then another clinical environment that's been offering immune cell therapy in Japan, in Tokyo, since 1999. I mean, these guys have treated over 13,000 patients. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that this kind of stuff isn't more readily available and accessible throughout the world. And that was the point of my trip. Was I'm working on an international project to actually make some of these therapeutic options more readily available and accessible to people. And so we're setting that up in Indonesia and Bali. And I took a trip from Japan, en route to Bali, but I had to fly via Manila. So I thought I'd stay in Manila for a couple of days and, catch up with family. I'm half Filipino, and, my family, there's a lot of them because they breed like Filipinos.
Right? So which half of you is Filipino, the top or the bottom?
This half. And so I got to catch up with a couple of cousins, and, that was awesome. But I'm there, I may as well be productive. So I organized a meeting with the Filipino government because I can. And, the Department of Tourism, specifically health and wellness tourism. And what can I contribute? And met with the directors, and what are you dealing with? What can I make a difference to? And, with everything that I've learned, especially on that trip from the US and Japan. And so I inspired them to work with me on a project that will work up in the Philippines over the coming years. And it's huge, and it's a dream of mine. And,
so cool.
Yeah.
So then how I know how much it means to you.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah. So in the face of all that, nutritionally, how did you manage yourself along those? What did you do to look after yourself?
I ate well, I drank well, I slept well. And again, the context was it was always forward thinking. So when I ate, you got to be responsible. And this is a practice for everyone to take on. Whatever you stick in your face, it can't be like, whenever you say, for example, you consume alcohol, and at the end of the day, you're like, I need a drink. Where are you looking in that moment? The past. You need a drink for what? To compensate for however hard a day you think you've had, right? So even when I drank, it was with people to forge a future relationship or partnership with that person. So the context of the conversational space was always empowering, which meant it took forever even just to get through one glass of wine. I mean, we're too busy talking and creating the future, and there was a world of inspiration, and I took it upon myself to generate that world of inspiration. So there wasn't like any down moments, really. And when you're eating to fuel the next performance. It wasn't like, I'm so hungry, I'm starving. Where is your attention? It's all in the past. Like surviving however long it's been since you last ate. So how is this meal going to serve what we could be up to together, right? Is it a meal of interest? I mean, I did not sit around and eat some burger and fries with people. I mean, it's not very interesting. It's not going to serve the conversational topics and etc. So you always, firstly, you have to create a context of you're always living into a future, and it's a future of your own design. And I was living into a future called being in Bali and getting a job done. And so there's that. And then when you do have an indulgence, you got to make sure you manage it, especially in the first half of the next day. You don't go indulgence. I mean, you have an indulgence and then you got to correct that, like drop the calories right down, make sure you're just having good quality protein, hydrating consistently throughout. I managed my supplementation. I was taking my multis, my magnesium and calcium supplements. And, you got to take the magnesium, but if you take magnesium without the calcium, then you're just going to end up with the runs. So they have kind of opposing effects on bowel function. So you got to manage that appropriately. I took my NAD boosters, my antioxidants, my fish oil, my spermidine. I kept my supplements with me. I brought with me protein shakes and bars, and that's what I ate on the plane.
Yeah, right. I think Emily said she was going to be doing that too yesterday.
You need the crap plane food. I needed to be on point as soon as I got in that next country and had no freaking idea what I was doing or where I was going. And if I was like sluggish, then that was going to trip me up.
I remember the first day in Canada, and any time we sort of flew from one part of Canada to the other and ate the food on the plane, it took us a day or two, or some of the other guys, 3-4 days to recover from the food on the plane. We're bunged up, feeling unwell in the guts. It was just phenomenal. So it's a good idea.
And that's something that I have to manage vigilantly is my IBS, my irritable bowel syndrome. And, or if I eat something with lactose, that's not going to.
Coffee story. That was awesome.
Sorry?
Coffee story with the soy coffee.
Oh yeah, in the Philippines, in Manila. That was so funny. I'm like, that's another one of those moments where you could just get pissed off. It could ruin your day. And I just started laughing. So I asked at the hotel, I go downstairs for some breakfast, and I asked for a coffee. Or they asked, would you like a coffee? And I said, yes, I'd love coffee, a soy flat white. So she brings the coffee and a little thing of soy milk. And she said, and I said, so what's the milk in the coffee? And she said, oh, normal milk. Like this. And it just got me thinking, because I was downstairs the morning before, and I asked for a soy flat white, and they just brought me a coffee, and I just drank it. But then I had to run upstairs to the bathroom, and I was thinking, what was it that I ate? It wasn't the coffee. It was like, it must have been something. I couldn't put my finger on it because I'm so careful about what I eat. And I realized that it just gave me a normal coffee with calcium
soy on the side.
And it's both the lactose, and in that state of inflammation, then the caffeine or the coffee can further irritate it and just cause this gastric dumping right before I had to go meet with the Department of Tourism. And yeah, that was hilarious. But then, from Manila, fly to Bali, and then I met with the president, CEO of Hotel Indonesia Group. And they had, he's got this commitment to develop a particular hotel there in Bali that is, it's going to be super innovative. And so I had a number of really cool ideas that could help differentiate that hotel from its competitors. And it was great just, again, forging that relationship. And I had the privilege of staying at their current flagship resort in Bali. And, they did me a good deal on that. So I organized a catch-up meeting with the general manager of that resort and forged a relationship with him. And I said, every time I come back here, I want to stay at this resort. Can you do me a proper deal?
Yeah.
But
It's an interesting thing though, with when you would talk about going on holidays, and you said it's to take a break from, whatever you've been dealing with in the past and all that sort of thing. But something I thought about on my walk this morning was like, it's a holiday from your life, but you can't take a holiday from your body.
Well, you can't take a holiday from your life.
Well, I mean, it occurs that way. Like, I'm getting away from life for a while and leaving all that, and so I can, decompress or whatever that is and relieve the stress and all that sort of stuff. But it doesn't matter where you go and what you do. You can't holiday from your body. It's not like your pancreas, your liver, and your heart switch off and go, well, we're on holiday, so let's just cut him some slack. It just kind of do what it does anyway.
No, you want to be present. I mean, I've watched people on holidays. They don't look like they're having a good time.
You were saying this on the beach in Bali, and just like, how do people sit here all day doing nothing?
I know. But look, I've got a particular kind of brain as well, that I had that last day in Bali. I get up and I'm thinking, all right, this is a day, because the team, my feasibility team, they didn't need me that day. So I was like, okay, what do I do? So I'm going to chill out, and it was great. I got up, I had this beautiful bathroom, this big bathtub. Thought, I have a bath. I was bored after 5 minutes, so I got up. I thought I'll go for a walk on the beach before anyone's around, and it was beautiful beach, and got to explore some of that part of Nusa Dua in Bali, and I come back and I'm just like, I'm pretty rejuvenated. It's not even 9 a.m. yet, and now what? So I had an experience of their spa treatments, and then after that I went down by the beach and I just started speaking to people, and I there was a lot that happened on the trip, so I needed to bring some people up to speed, like the medical director of the New South Wales Institute of Sport, and some other surgeons and clinical colleagues, and letting them know what we're developing, what's happening, what's cooking. And, I'm fortunate enough to have an opportunity to develop something in an environment that's really going to alter the face of medicine and be able to deliver the medicine of the future today in a very safe and efficacious way. And, it's a big undertaking. It's a bold undertaking. It's, comes with a lot of stress and headache and challenges and hurdles and deadlines, and nothing's a done deal yet. So I'm pulling together all the bits and pieces in good faith, in really not waiting. And worst case scenario, if it doesn't happen there, I've set up an opportunity to create that whole environment in the Philippines. So it's this will be the next sort of decade of my life, putting together those two projects. And then everyone's getting excited. They want me to do it in other countries as well, Malaysia and India. And just like,
why wouldn't they?
Hang on. Let
me get these two done first.
Yeah. And I do all of this. It's not like I'm being funded. Like, this is all off, especially the past 3 months. And I did have an expression of concern from one of my colleagues saying, there's so much happening. We really need you to focus, Dean, and because you're the nexus in all of this. And I said, listen, no one's more focused than me. No one sees the vision bigger, clearer, better than me. No one can pull all the pieces together. No one's willing to do this unfunded for 3 months. Who would do that?
Yeah.
No, there's no one more focused than me on this. And you got to manage your you can't do it unless you manage your well-being vigilantly, and the integrity with which you bring to the performance of anything that you must do in life is always a function of the degree to which what you're up to really matters to you. So integrity, and that's just doing what you said by when you said you would do it, doing it the way that it's designed to be done, doing it in a way in which it's expected of you. Even if you haven't explicitly made a promise, if someone still has that expectation of you, the impact of not fulfilling another's expectation is the same as making a promise and not fulfilling on it. So you got to do all that, and you've got to keep alive for yourself an empowering context or conversation for what's possible, right? I mean, people can't even last they reach out to us. How often does this happen, Trevor? People are like, I'm done. I need to make a change. I know you guys are the best. I'll do anything, whatever it takes. Okay, register, like actually freaking commit, like fill in some paperwork, pay some money.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready. Well, clearly you're full of shit. You're fucking full of shit. It's time you grow up, not at some point during the protocol. And we're a little bit antagonistic as well. It's not so easy to get started. Why? Because we need to know that who we're dealing with is the real deal. Because what makes the magic happen is, yes, there's the commitment of the coach. And yes, there's the beauty of the science and all that. And there's the structure and all that makes it possible. But as equally as important, if not more important than any of that, is the client's commitment. So you got to be willing to put your ass on the line and put your life in the hands of another, because you certainly can't be trusted with that body of yours. So you got to be willing to do that. And, that's just the harsh reality of it. Anything in life you want to commit, you got to deal with yourself. I mean, take even just getting married, for example. You make a commitment, someone proposes, the other person accepts, and now you're engaged, and you set a wedding date. And if you don't, then you're just full of it. You got to set a date, and that date is a scheduled moment in time where it's literally the public death of you as an individual. There's no longer you as an individual. There's just us as a relationship, as a partnership, right? And because there's that moment in time where your identity, that personality, and everything you've known yourself to be, and you've developed all these survival strategies to make it through the threat of life that doesn't even really exist, and you're creating all these boundaries, and you got to create boundaries, and it's just like, oh, for fuck's sakes, how are you going to connect with anyone? You're not connected to life. You're putting up all these boundaries everywhere, and then you test the shit out of each other because your machinery goes nuts. And people don't see that little bit of uncomfortableness in the beginning, what it takes to actually commit, is your opportunity for the first transformation. I mean, that's deliberate. It's by design. It's part of the process of, getting involved. And so you got to have integrity in all of that, have an empowering context. And then what that creates is a state of workability and an opportunity, when things are workable, to perform at a high level, at a level that you've never been able to perform at before. And why would you want to perform at a high level? Because it freaking matters to you. So integrity is only as important as what you're up to really matters. And there are areas in life where you may not have integrity, and you can kind of look and go, well, does it really matter to me? No, I might have just been saying I want to do stuff because I think I should, or because everyone thinks that I should, or because it looks good. And it really doesn't matter to you that much, and very rarely in life do people kind of look at what is not working in their life, or where they're not the fullest expression and they're not up to something great that causes them to get out of bed in the morning with that sense of aliveness, and relate that to their bloody health. I mean, if you're so inflamed because you're metabolically unwell, there's so much dysfunction. I mean, you're metabolically deranged. Most people have this insulin resistance that causes inflammation. You got brain fog. I mean, how the heck are you going to get up to something or motivate yourself to be up for the game if your brain's not functioning properly?
Or even just the buy off of the reasonableness, as you said, to be unreasonable, but the reasonableness around, I'm happy with that. I know I did this, but I'm okay with that. I know I went off protocol and ate this, but I'm okay with only losing X amount this week. I'm happy with that. That's all good. It's all in that reasonable world of the past, of like, that's how you've operated in the past the whole time, and that's what got you into trouble in the first place. So yeah, it really does take a new way of being and acting to get a different result than what you've always ended up with. But it is amazing how much we as human beings cling on to those past ways. Even when you say I want to come in, I want to, can you guys help me? I want to lose all the weight. I'm not comfortable anymore. I know something's got to shift. And then, a month in, they're clinging on to what got them into trouble in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, it's like, oh my God, this coaching approach is scary. And you guys are really harsh. And I just need kindness. You need to coach me in a kind way. And it's like, you're only saying that because you've been such a hard ass on yourself for so many years, like beating up on yourself, and it's not your fault. I mean, the human body is designed to put weight on, especially in this kind of environment, and you don't know any better. So you got to confront that which you don't know, and you don't even know you don't know it. And, but then they get into it, and then they discover that the coaching approach is like so loving and caring. And it's like, that's what it looks like to love someone.
Mm.
I mean, you love people and you have a big expectation of them. You don't let them get away with shit.
Mm.
You don't watch people continually be on this downward spiral and be an observer to it and go, oh, they just need my kindness and acceptance. No, they don't. They need you to step in and go, hey, cut it out. You're ruining your life. And let me be the one to walk you back through whatever it takes to get yourself well and on track again. But, people aren't willing to do that. Why? Because they're dealing with their own stuff. And it's like, I can't help someone else until I sort my own. You're never going to sort your own stuff out. You're a screw up. You're a loser. You're worthless. And that's what's going to be written on your tombstone. But you may as well be a loser that makes a big difference in the world. Why not? I mean, there's way more fun than being a loser who actually lived a loser life. Now, you could be a loser, whatever. All that crap's not going away. I mean, it happens to me all the time. I'll go from like being King Dingaling to biggest loser on the planet within the space of 2 minutes. Like, the voice. I mean, if I could put that bloody thing on loudspeaker, everyone would be going, "Oh my God, you have those thoughts?" Of course, I have those thoughts. I'm freaking human. So the thing that you've got to really start generating, Trevor, and developing your other coaches in is when all those clients act with a lack of integrity and justify it and explain their way out of it. And, by saying things, oh, look, it's only half a kilo, but I'm okay with that. It's you got to be the one that says, yeah, look, I could be okay with that too, but I'm not. And you got to elevate them. You got to not like harsh on them. They're already harsh on themselves, but you got to start developing them in being a real stand for what's possible. And look, half a kilo, if you lose half a kilogram of fat, that's the equivalent energy expenditure of running 1.5 marathons imagine running 60 kilometers in a week.
Not diminishing the half kilo, but it's just,
Exactly. But it's not the expectation. And when people are like that, reasonable, and that's what you've got to manage as a coach as well, it's not inspiring for you. Right? So don't coach them in a way that leaves you ultimately disempowered in coaching them. You get that? Yeah, if you let them get away with crap, then they're not going to be someone that you look forward to coaching every week. You got to be causing the matter and be responsible for that weekly accomplishment, the expectation of about 1 kilogram a week for women and more for men, up to double. Sometimes, there's been guys that have lost, up to 3 kilograms a week, when they operate with integrity. And that's the game. And, they don't need you to be reasonable.
Yeah.
They're already reasonable. They sell out to their reasons and justifications and excuses all the time. No, they need you to be like the one that creates the space for them to step into and be someone that they've never been before, someone that they've never been willing to be before, and more importantly, didn't even know it was possible for them to be. That's what it is to be a coach. And I mean, you're getting just phenomenal outcomes. And I also know that the the difference you're making in the number of people's lives, it can be taxing on you as well. So you got to look after your well-being, and you do that really bloody well. I mean, you're in better shape now than when I was done with you. You just kept going and you keep pushing yourself, but now it's causing the environmental condition that empowers you as a coach. And you're responsible for that. And what that looks like is just absolutely making sure people are causing miraculous results around you.
Yeah.
Share with me, what are you hearing now newly for yourself and in that conversation?
Around the whole making it empowering me as a coach through the results of the client. And that's as much my responsibility as it is theirs to have them be able to produce the results that they may not necessarily think they can produce at any one time. But definitely I can see say with Emily, for example, yesterday, she was questioning all the time. And sometimes, I'd struggle a little bit, but she was always in the game of taking on whatever we spoke about that week, getting the questions answered and sorted for herself. And whether she had an opinion about that or didn't see why, she just took on what we spoke about anyway during the week and went, oh, well, okay, then I'm going to keep going with this. And it was like a up and down sort of ride the whole time. But then you hear her speak yesterday and she's just a new person.
Yes.
Under health. And she brought all that up herself. And, that was really empowering for me. And totally get if it's not that, then it becomes like belting your head against a wall. And in that context, how the hell am I going to make a difference to the client if it shows up for me like that before I even get on the call?
Yeah, and before too long, then every client starts occurring to you in a particular way.
Yeah.
Like a pain in the ass, hard work. Like, so how you manage the environment in which you get to be and act the biggest and best version of yourself is produce the bloody results.
Mm-hmm.
We educate, we understand, but we're results producers. People come to us for new breakthrough, out of the box results, and you got to be causing that for yourself. In your experience of life, your expression, what you're up to. Yeah. So I'm, traveling around the world. How do you manage yourself? Same as in life. I mean, it's no different. It's just geography. I mean, you manage yourself with that level of rigor at home, with people that you love, in your work, what you're up to. There's that story, that fable of two guys chipping rocks, and one guy just old, weathered, miserable, just kind of like looks like his life sucks, right? And the other one's chipping away, humming to himself, smile on his face. And when questioned, the first one, to answer the question, what are you doing? He said, chipping rocks. And the other one, what are you doing? Building a cathedral. Building something, up to something bigger than himself, something that's going to serve others, something that's going to last well beyond this lifetime. What's your legacy project? What are you committed to leaving behind? What's the continuity? I mean, everything that I've learned and learning, you and Emma and Kilby, the continuity of that. Everyone's like, write a book. Yeah, maybe I'll get to that. Think I will, but I'd rather discover what it takes to transfer what I've learned to others and watch them, see what they do with it. And you come up with your own expressions. And, I love it when we all get together and I get to learn from you guys. It's like, how the heck did you handle that? And,
I think Emma's coming up soon, so we'll be able to do that.
Which one, sorry?
I think Emma's coming up soon.
So from Melbourne to Sydney, yeah.
We'll be able to do that very shortly.
Okay, well, you've completed your nutrition studies. Congratulations. We need to celebrate that. And
yeah.
And Kilby's finished her, so she's joining the coaching team, and I'm very excited about that. And Emma's soon to finish. And so, you guys more qualified than me. It's stuff.
On paper.
But I mean, here's the question I have for you, because you live a very different life these days. Very different. It's distinct. So what's your experience of yourself? Who do you know yourself to be, and what are you up to and creating?
Well, but a little bit about that, and also what we're just talking about with your trip and all that sort of stuff, and just aligning with the actual as-isness of, or the what so of what's actually happening versus the drama and thoughts and feelings and all the emotion around what's happening. And I've got, one of our clients is in Brazil at the moment dealing with massive amounts of jet lag and not being able to catch up with the time and all that sort of stuff. And we've had this conversation about just aligning with what's so, not making any of it wrong, just getting where you're at and the as-isness of what's happening versus all the stuff that's going on about what's happening. And, I've seen that on trips away with family, where little micro things happen at a hotel, for example, and 3 or 4 people in the family just go nuts and basically wreck the holiday for the next 2 or 3 days for themselves more than anyone.
Yeah.
Bart and I are sitting there just going, it'll get sorted. The holiday will keep going, and we don't want to be involved.
Just a little bit on that, the whole jet lag phenomenon. Yeah, look, there can be and there is a physiological reality to that. However, it's just an exaggerated version of waking up and looking, like in the middle of the night, when you wake up at night and you look at the clock to work out how tired you should feel. And so when people are traveling different time zones, they're constantly calculating what time it would be and how much sleep they're missing out on and where they should be. And they're not just where they're at. And that's what you're pointing to. What's the as-isness right now, and just deal with that.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly trying to calculate what time it was back home so you can work out how tired you should feel, or so you can be justified in sloppy ways of being and acting. You can be justified in whatever tantrum you're about to throw. Or it's like, no, grow up. Just be where you're at. Don't give yourself permission to act those ways. Doesn't matter how tired you are. You don't have the right to take your shit out on somebody else. So, yeah.
All that side of things. And also, I think whether you want to call it discipline or integrity around that new view of me as a healthy person and what we're contributing here to cause health in other people, in the different things I'm interested in, what I look up and learn about, and what I can bring to what I do every day. I've been taking ice baths before I train every 2 days now, which is heaps of fun in the winter, let me tell you.
Hang on. So you do ice baths for how long? How long are you in the ice bath for? 5. And then you get out and you do your exercise. It's high intensity interval training.
Yeah, but it's a form of high intensity interval training. Yeah. So, and it's amazing to see even on the heart rate monitor how the ice bath affects that, just your heart rate, and then obviously how your body comes on to support the exercise. So if I look at the heart rate on my heart rate monitor, if I just go out and do a deck of cards training session, it'll start off and then rise and sort of go up and down and up and down. It might peak a little bit here and there and whatever. After the ice baths, and it's every time, it's not like just sometimes this happens. It starts and it comes up, and if I get hammered with some cardio type stuff, it might rise a little bit, but it's still not into the green or red zone of my heart rate chart. And it'll sort of keep climbing, and then the last third of it, red line. It's just a flat line of flat biscuit in the red zone, maximum heart rate. It's phenomenal, where your body's just catching up to what you're doing physically after all that blood's been pulled to your brain and your
gut.
guts, yeah. And your
So you basically all that blood flow is restricted to your core, and then you go and exercise and your muscles struggle.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get a surge, right? Because there's this adaptive response.
Yes.
And then your exertion, the prowess of your exertion goes through the roof. But you've been sharing with me that energy, you maintain that throughout the day, right?
Yeah. It's just like it's like you're just having a cup of coffee every hour. Plastic,
and then you sleep well. And I mean, you always sleep well anyway, but there's no, you still sleep well.
Yeah, then the sleeping's been great. And it is really interesting because it's a really weird feeling, because when you first start the training, it's like you haven't, as you said, you haven't got the power in your muscles, say, to do X amount of push-ups, if that's the card that's come up. But you can still somehow manage to do them. It's really, really, you feel like you haven't got that power, but you just sort of keep punching push-ups out. And it's like, that's weird. I feel like I'm going to, okay, next card, what was that? And then your legs feet are generally numb. If I have to go for a run around the block, it's like running on stumps.
You've now further augmented this with a couple of other hacking techniques. One in particular, the carbon 60.
Yeah. So I tried another version of that in while we were in Canada. I took a bottle with me, didn't really notice much different, and I was looking to get it for our clients as well. And you were like, ask them for this screening test and see whether they can provide the same, information on what was that, how much of the carbon gets absorbed, or the availability of the carbon, or.
Yeah, so carbon 60 it's a fullerene. So it's basically 60 carbon atoms that come together. And you can look at it under electron microscopy, and it looks like a soccer ball. And they call it a fullerene after Buckminster Fuller. So Buckminster Fuller, if you don't know about Buckminster Fuller, you got to read about the guy. I mean, this guy was a phenomenon. He got to a point in his life where he really was a loser for himself, and he was about to, I think he had a wife and kids, and he was done. He was over it, and he was on a cliff or something, or I don't know where he was, Lake Michigan, something like that. And he was about to throw himself into the lake and kill himself.
Yeah, right.
And then there was this moment where he questioned something. He questioned whether, like, what he got for himself was that, yeah, maybe I am this, like, whatever, this sad sock clod of ailments, grievances, and complaints. But what could this loser do? What's an experiment that I could create? What could be possible? And he basically altered the context of his life as an experiment, like what could be possible. And it was like that first iteration of himself got complete.
Yeah, right.
And people are always like, I want to get back to how I used to be. Listen, that's done. That river has flowed. You can't ever go back into that river again. And it's the same with being a human being. And maybe one can consider what Shakespeare said is the world is your stage and you play a character in life, right? So maybe whoever you've known yourself to be, it's not even one character. Like people go, oh, that's just me, or that's my personality. No, you've played multiple characters throughout your life up until this point. And if you can keep bringing yourself back to nothing, you give yourself an opportunity to create the next chapter. Like you actually get to be the author of that next chapter and design the character that's appropriate for that. You could actually design yourself as a hero in that story, right? And this guy goes on to create like all these inventions, the geodesic dome, he created that. I use words like tensegrity that were coined by him. Tension integrity, you use that to describe the quality of your ligaments that hold your joints together. If you have a trauma in your knee and the ligaments are like the rubber bands that hold the joint together, if they become traumatized, they lose their elasticity. So they lack tensegrity, and you can actually use regenerative medicine techniques to restore the tensegrity and therefore normalize the biomechanics of that joint. But anyway, so these little fullerenes are named after Buckminster Fuller, and they one of these molecules has 20 sites that can scavenge free radicals. And it's small enough to get into the inner mitochondrial membrane of, in your cells, you've got mitochondria. These are the energy producing organelles that make ATP, and ATP is the currency of the body. It's a molecule, adenosine, and then 3 phosphates, phosphate 1, 2, and 3. And the chemical bond between phosphate 2 and phosphate 3 is the potential energy that runs your entire body and allows you to do everything, every enzymatic reaction, every neuronal function, allows your heart to beat the way that it's, everything, right, is just all in that chemical bond of ATP. And so when you produce ATP, you produce free radicals. There's a lot of these oxidants. And if you can help mop them up inside the inner mitochondrial membrane, then your cell has a hell of a lot more energy available with less byproduct damage. And therefore, the cells and tissues have a greater capacity to function better, regenerate more. It's a lot of this isn't tested clinically, but it's safe, and people have expressed a lot of anecdotal improvements. I used carbon-60 in the past, but what you'll find is, I think you were just sharing with me, you've shortened your time to get through a deck of cards or something, where by how much?
Oh, it varies depending on what exercises, but between 2 and 4 minutes.
I mean, if you just sat there and counted 4 minutes, it's exactly a right bloody time. Now, if you're doing, and I've watched you exercise, if you exercise at the intensity that you do for 4 minutes, I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And how long since you've been taking that product?
The one that you recommended was, I think I've been taking that a week and a half, about a week and a half now.
Just a week and a half.
I noticed it after the 4 days. I was like, okay.
And why I told you to get that one, I mean, it's a buddy of mine that makes it in the States. But, if you look at it under electron microscopy, they're monomolecular, which means they don't clump.
Mm.
And you can look at them, you fly it through a mass spectrometer and you just get a single peak. Right. So you want it in monomolecular form. You don't want clumps. You don't want it to form nanotubes, because then it could potentially be dangerous, potentially. And you want it in high enough numbers. It's like, that's why it's black.
Yeah.
Not like some of the other preparations that you can buy on the market, And I'm saying to him, is there an upper limit to toxicity? This is years and years ago. And he goes, I'm pretty sure I overdosed on it. when I was trying to figure out how to make the stuff, and because he was breathing it in a lot, right? In his lungs, everything. And I said, what happened? And he goes, oh, my shit was black for a couple of months or a couple of weeks or something like that. And I go, wow, so that was amazing. It went all the way through his system, right? And kind of colored his poo. I said, how did you feel? And he goes, best I've ever felt in my life. And I used it. I remember when we did the stem cell treatment for the family dog, remember? And the dog had renal failure, and I did a world first stem cell procedure, and I combined the stem cell technology with this carbon nanotechnology. And my intention was to mop up any of the calcium, the heavy metal, so we didn't form calcium oxalate accumulation in his kidneys. And, the vet was ready to put him down. He was done, and he lived for another 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And who knows? I fed him that carbon-60 every day for a year. Who knows if I kept feeding it to him, or, but stuff in life happened and he didn't get looked after the way that I would like to.
NMN for animals now.
I know. You can biohack your pet. That's so cool.
And the insanity of it is, I think a lot of people would rather biohack their pet than themselves, but that's another story.
I know you could biohack your pet. You could have it live almost 1.5 times its expected life length. Or if you don't like the pet and you want it to die earlier, just keep feeding it tinned dog food and don't walk it. The stuff out of the bag, the dry stuff.
Yeah.
just do that and don't walk it. But yeah, so you're really fulfilling on what I'd originally set out. If you remember, the context was your job in this whole process was recreate who I am where you are. And I'm the mad scientist. Like, I experiment on myself. I do, I got tests.
Pretty much a lot of what I'm doing too is just, like the ice bars prior to the training. There's supposed testosterone increases by doing that, as well as the hypoxic effect of the training with the blood restriction to the muscles and that still astounds me. Just that hard, it just takes for, and even the runs around the block I do, which normally you can still see the spike in the heart rate graph, but it doesn't get to unless it's in that 2/3, and that will normally be what triggers it, and then it just red lines the whole way across till the end of the cards.
Wow. And you'll recover so much faster now. I had years and years and years, a friend of mine I went to school with, and then she was in WA and she was wanting to get back into extreme sports, including kite surfing. And kite surfing is quite anaerobic and you can't stay out on the water for too long. It's so taxing on the body. And certainly it's very difficult if you're not conditioned to be able to get back out on the water on consecutive days. Like, it takes you time to recover. And I remember sending her some, and she was able to stay out on the water longer and then get back out on the water the next day. And so it sped up her training such that she was able to then compete in the state championships. And I think her first run at that, she came second. And then I think subsequent attempts to compete, she was like number one. It was amazing. Yeah.
So inside of all that, I think it's just that, like I said, the integrity around there's nothing that really stops me from getting those things done. Like whether it's the ice bath and cards one day, the 8K walk the next day, and I pretty much just alternate those every day. Sometimes I'll do 2 walks and then the cards and whatever else. But whether it's raining or whether I've got, a call on at 10 o'clock in the morning, I just got to get up earlier so I can get that done, and nothing stops me from doing those things. I can't think of a day when I've gone, you know what, probably can't do it today, even if it means something's in the way and I've got to do it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's an hour and a half break I've got there, bang, I'm out the door at 3 o'clock in the afternoon getting that done. So for me, the sustainability side of things, apart from just knowing nutritionally how to do that, how to keep everything in check and all that sort of thing around the integrity of sustaining that long term, I've never had before. So there'll be times I've lost weight and got healthy for a limited amount of time, but then once that happened, it was like, well, I'm done now, and it just slides back down to where it was before.
Yes.
I was the unhealthiest probably I'd ever been in my life, just before I started the Simplr Health protocol. So it's constantly amazing every time I just do a jump on the scales for the sake of just checking in and just going, of course I'm the same, or, I just saw the other day the post is 4 kilos or something down from when I finished the Simplr Health protocol. It was just, of course it's that way, because there's just consistency over and over and over again with what I'm doing in terms of my health.
And that's what the universe rewards more than anything, is consistency. And so you've now demonstrated, and if you look, you've got very powerful contexts. I mean, you've got context around your marriage. You've got a context around who you are as a grandfather, and you've got a context around now that you're well, and now your body, and you can experiment and play around with stuff, and it's all in service of, okay, what more can I learn? What more can I then contribute to others? And then you've got like this opportunity to coach and practice, transferring that to others.
Yeah.
Watching the difference roll out and happen in their lives. I mean, this is what I mean about creating a context bigger than yourself. It wasn't just for you to get back to a state of health that you had once upon a time in the past. It was like, okay, getting myself well. Now from here, looking out into the future as a well person, what can I contribute? What could I create? What can I get up to? It's got to be like that,
It's been great because a couple of clients that Emma's coaching, have sort of gone down. Now they're feeling better and they want to get back into exercise and doing more. And they're also, because it's a fad at the moment, this whole longevity and saunas and ice baths and all that sort of thing as well. So they sort of get caught up in that. It starts to show on, I know it did with me, starts to show on your Instagram feed a lot more, and your Facebook feed a lot more, ads for ice baths or Huberman Lab doing something on cold therapy, or all this stuff starts to show up the more you get interested in it. And it was great to have a chat with a couple of her clients while she was away and just go over some of that longevity stuff around the ice baths and when to have them. And he's building an ice bath in his house and he hasn't put his sauna together yet. And he was doing it the wrong way around, finishing on the sauna because that was comfortable and, would end on the warm part, especially in winter. And it's like, nah, got to do it the other way around.
Yeah, well,
it was great. It's great being able to have those experiences versus just knowing the science.
yeah. Yeah. And look, our key philosophy, I got really clear for myself where I stand with regards to health and all the biohacking. And, I get asked a lot of questions all the time about, gosh, everything. But, especially peptides. Just the other day, I got asked by one of my clinical colleagues about peptides. And it's the same with everything. I'm more grounded now in the benefits of creating an adaptive response from a controlled challenge. So you create a challenge, and it's a challenge of choice. And you take that challenge on such that there's an adaptation that happens. And there's a process that you go through, and it's uncomfortable, and it's got to be uncomfortable. Otherwise, it's not a challenge. So you got to learn to be with the uncomfortableness of it until something adapts, and then you got to keep creating or designing it in a way where if you tolerate it, if you learn to tolerate it, it's not a challenge anymore, then it's of no benefit to you.
Yeah.
Right. So someone asked me about a peptide, and I'm a protein biochemist, and this was my jam, many years ago in a past lifetime, and structure function studies. And I used to study the post-translational modification of proteins and growth factors and all that sort of boring stuff, quite frankly. And anyway, I said, look, the problem is with any of these exogenous molecules that you inject, they will have an impact on your own endogenous versions, right? So you could take, for example, sirtuin activators, and I do intermittently. But there's nothing more powerful than putting your body into a state of ketosis and generating your own endogenous activators of those sirtuin genes, oleic acid, right? Or if, people can inject testosterone, and there are cases where just an injection of testosterone for a period of time can make an enormous difference and a huge improvement to both men and women's quality of life. But you're saying like and you sent me some papers. I love the cold therapy, the deliberate cold exposure, then going straight from that to exercise. It can cause a 30 to 40% uplift in testosterone levels. Yeah. So you're causing adaptive shifts, even just sticking to something, having the discipline to be consistent with something over time and doing it when all of the circumstances are against you, when you don't feel like it, we don't think you're capable of it, when it's raining and you still do it, there's adaptive responses that happen in how your brain is wired. So even these, semaglutide, Ozempic, these GLP-1 agonists that people are injecting to lose weight, I mean, basically, if people don't understand, it's just a biochemical simulation of bariatric surgery to make you eat less, essentially, right? Now, that too has an impact on your endogenous incretin system. People can read up on that, INCRETIN, incretin system. So this is what regulates hunger and how your gut communicates to your brain and all this sort of stuff. So if you inject an agonist, one of these medications, then that will cause you will lose weight, and even it can be used in conjunction with this protocol that we use. However, it's unnecessary, and it was really great speaking to Antonio, who basically developed these drugs. it's not absolutely not necessary, because if people do it the way that it's designed, our approach, the very high level of ketosis, the ketones themselves have an appetite suppressant property. And so using the medication in conjunction with it wouldn't add any further benefit.
You're right.
You know, in fact, what our protocol does make possible is an exit strategy, a deprescribing approach to get patients off of those medications. Otherwise, they're going to have a significant rebound effect after losing the weight, because they've down-regulated their own regulatory system, right? And that's why we don't hold people's hands. We guide them through it. We provide a deep degree of understanding, but we don't hold their hands. So we don't help people. We empower people to be responsible for their own life. That's an adaptive response.
Yeah.
And, you know, injecting endogenous molecules is a helping hand. Sometimes, look, there are people in a state where that could be life-changing for them, right? But they've got to have a forward-thinking plan. It's like, okay, how am I going to get off this at some point, right? So I can regulate myself. So, you know, it was really awesome to get, like I said, settled in that view and being able to express it to my clinical colleagues, and they really get it as well. And it's like, okay, this isn't to invalidate any of those approaches. It's to create a more empowering context for how best to use every one of these tools that we have available to us now to provide the best outcomes. And the outcome isn't just being skinny. The outcome is a well person who's fundamentally empowered to be responsible for their own lot for the rest of their life. And then you can go die from, like, go get assassinated or something, you know, be up to something. If you're going to get, I mean, people get injured because they were just fat and they tripped over something. I mean, that's such a pathetic story. You know, what'd you do to the ankle? They won't even say it. Oh, I accidentally tripped. And, you know, if you were well, you would have bounced back. I mean, very quickly, your reflex response, you wouldn't have just tumbled over on that ankle, right? I mean, my head injury, at least I got thrown down on the floor by a 7th Dan Grand Master of Bushidokai Karate.
That'll teach you for watching Bruce Lee movies in your 40s.
I know. Or when I got COVID, at least I got it from one of Australia's most famous male vocalists. Like, it's like, if you're gonna get yourself unwell or injured, it may as well be a cool story associated with that. And that's only ever going to happen if you're up to something out here in life, and you're only ever going to be fully doing that if you're well. So, you know, you got to create some more stories, Trevor.
Yes, well, story time. All right.
Yes, we've been talking a while.
We have. I was going to say that might do us for today. So thanks.
No one's going to listen this long. If anyone listens this long, reach out to me. If you've listened to the whole thing, reach out to me and share with me what you gained from it. How has this conversation impacted you? What are you taking away with it? And what are you going to do differently? And, you know, to whomever sends me that kind of a communication, I'll send you some free Wine Doctor wine.
Wow. There you go. This is like the guy that doesn't know they've won lotto.
I know.
1 million in Powerball, but we can't find them, and someone's just gone, I probably won't win, chuck it in the bin. You're walking around.
You know, there's got to be some reward for the effort. But I mean, we give this stuff away for free, man. There's just hours and hours and hours and hours of content that we give away for free that has made an enormous difference to people's lives. I'm just no, you know, Sinclair or Huberman, or I don't even listen to those guys, and haven't listened to those guys for years and years. I mean, I read the papers and meet other people who are cutting edge, and what else can I contribute? You know, that content is great and people should listen to it, but that's there. I don't need to reiterate it. I'm looking for what are the gaps now. You know, and it's harder and harder for me to find those gaps because there's so much brilliant geniuses, way smarter than me, out there providing all of this content for free. It's incredible, you know. Right. So there's no reason, rhyme, or excuse for people to say, oh, I just don't know what to do. Here's what you do is you commit, you pay your bloody money, and you freaking well do what you're told until what's being said to do is coming from your own mouth, not someone else. You know, and that's where the power lies, is what goes in and what comes out of that bloody mouth of yours. Yeah. But you're a clear demonstration of it like nobody else, man. So keep expanding. It's freaking inspiring to watch.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, pleasure. You're welcome.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. You heard the man, free wine, Dr. Wine, if you've made it through. And thanks for tuning in. I'm sure we'll have some more episodes of Chewing the Fat coming up shortly. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.
See ya.